Good day, everyone. I am Mary Joy Maculbacol Ragudo, and I will discuss to you the continuation of the Technology Enhanced lesson using the Assure as Technology Integration Model. First, let us define what is Assure model. The Assure model is an instructional design model that designers use to develop more effective training programs with integrated technology. Assure differs from the ADDIE model because it's typically regarded as a model that caters to learners through technology and media. And also, it is a procedural guide for planning and delivering instructions that integrates technology and media into the technique process. It is also refers to a systematic approach of writing using the plans that helps teacher in organizing instructional procedures. Select methods and media and materials. Once you already know your audience and have a clear idea of what they should get out of the lesson, then it is the time for you to select the appropriate method for the given learning task. Select available materials, modify existing materials or design new materials to help accomplish the task. And this step, the instructor should connect the audience to the objectives. To connect the two, the teacher must determine what method to use. A systematic plan for using media demands that the media be selected systematically, and first, the selection process has two strategies. First is deciding on the appropriate method for the given learning task. First, it will be overly simplistic to believe that there is one method that is superior to all others or that serves all the learning needs equally well. Teachers often structure assignments to allow students with different preferred learning styles to pursue their individual practice through different method. Example, having abstract random. Thinkers use a role-play simulation while concrete sequential. Thinkers use a lab manual for instructor problem solving. The second one is choosing an appropriate media format and selecting, modifying, or designing the specific materials within that format. Choosing a media format. A media format is a physical form in which a message is incorporated and displayed. Media formats include, for example, flip charts, still images and text, slides, projection and still images, audio, voice and music, film, moving images on screen, video, moving images on a TV set, and computer multimedia, graphics, text, and moving images on a TV set. Each has different strength and limitations in terms of the types of messages that can be recorded and displayed. Choosing a media format can be a very complex task because of the following: vast array of media available, the infinite variety among learners, and the objectives to be pursued. Things to consider in the media selection models. First, or letter A, instructional situation or setting. Example, groupings, large group, small group, or self-instruction. Next, letter B, learner variables. Examples, reader, non-reader, or auditory preferences, and the nature of the objective. Example, cognitive, affective, motor skill, or interpersonal must be considered against the presentational capabilities of each of the media formats. Example, presenting still visuals, motion visuals, printed words, or spoken words. Next, letter C. The SAM models also take into consideration the capability of each format to give feedback to the learner. First is obtaining specific materials. Select, modify, or design. Obtaining appropriate materials will generally involve one of three alternatives. First is selecting available materials, modifying existing materials, or third, designing new materials. Once you decide what media formulated suits your objectives, the next thing that you should consider is in finding specific materials to convey the lesson. Next is selecting available materials. The majority of instructional materials used by teachers and trainers are off the shelf. This is ready-made and available from school, district, or company collections or other easily accessible sources. Next is survey or sources. Your first step might be to survey some of the published media reference guides to get a general idea of what is available. The decision about whether to use a particular piece of instructional material depends on several factors. Recent research confirms the criticality of certain criteria in the approach of materials. Among the questions to be asked about each specific piece of media are the following. Does it match the curriculum? Is it accurate and current? Does it contain clear and concise learning? Will it arouse motivation and maintain interest? Does it provide for learner participation? Is it of good technical quality? Is there evidence of its effectiveness? Example, field test result. Is it free from objectionable bias and advertising? Is a user guide or other documentation included? So, modifying available materials. If you cannot locate any suitable materials, you can always modify what is available. This can be both challenging and creative. Designing materials. Certain basic considerations must be considerations into account when designing new materials. For example, objective. What do you want your students to learn? Audience. What the characteristic of your learner? Cost. Is the sufficient money available in your budget to meet the cost? Technical expertise. Do you have the necessary expertise to design and produce the kind of material you wish to use? Equipment. Do you have the necessary equipment to produce or use the materials you intend to design? Facilities. If your designer calls for use of special facilities for presentation or use of your materials, are such facilities available? Time. Can you afford to spend whatever time necessary to design and produce the kind of materials you have in the mind? So utilize methods, media, and materials. The utilized methods and media and material step is where you delivered your plan for implementing your media and materials. For each type of media or materials, the teacher select and describe in how they are going to implement the media or material into your lesson to help your learners meet the lesson objective. The media, materials, and the technology selected method. If you decide to use electronic equipment, be sure to use it before. Even practice. If you have to practice the lesson itself before introducing it to the learner, next, prepare the room, the necessary equipment and facilities. It may be obvious, but both the learner and the teacher should be prepared for the learning experience. To get the maximum learning impact from your presentation, you must follow the certain utilization procedures. First is preview the materials. No instructional materials should be used blind. That's why during the selection process, you should have determined that the material are appropriate for your audience and objectives. Second is practice the presentation. After reviewing the materials, you should practice your portion of the presentation. However, do not over-practice or the presentation will sound canned. Prepare the environment. Wherever the presentation is to take place, classroom, auditorium, meeting room, or whatever the facilities will have to be put in order. Utilization of many media requires a darkened room, a convenient power supply, and access to the switches. The next one is to present the materials. This is what you've been preparing for. So you will want to make the most of the following. Our term for this is showmanship. Instructors should be able to direct attention in the classroom. The next one is require learner participation. The require learner participation steps requires you to describe how you are going to get each learner actively and individually involved in the lesson. Students learn best when they are actively involved in the learning experience. Whatever your teaching strategy, be sure to incorporate questions and answers, discussions, group work, hands-on activity, and other ways of getting students actively involved in the learning of the content. You should seek to pay close attention to your learners and feel confident that they are truly grasping the content and not just listening. Participating in learning will facilitate this level of understanding, allows them to construct knowledge as opposed to trying to teach the knowledge. Finally, for this step, feedback must be provided to the learner before any type of evaluation is conducted. The fifth step in the Assure model is to provide opportunities for learners to practice the capability being taught. Educators have long realized that participation in the learning process by the learner enhances learning. John Dewey urged reorganization of the curriculum and instruction to make student participation a central part of the process. Behavioral psychologists such as B.F. Skinner demonstrated that instruction providing for constant reinforcement of desired behavior is more effective than instruction in which responses are not reinforced. So next, evaluate student performance. The last step of the Assure method is to evaluate students' performance. Here, the evaluation should be matched to the objective. Ultimately, this last stage is the most important. You must evaluate the instruction process from start to finish using the objectives you created in the beginning. It is helpful to reflect on your objections. The instructional assessment by evaluating the learners against the objectives, it can be determined if the lesson has effective and whether any steps needs to be modified or re-examined. The Assure model supports the field of educational technology. While the Assure model is used to systematically design instruction, it steps away from the tradition's means of instruction, textbooks, lecture notes, or etc., to the use of the technology to deliver instructions, Academy of Teaching Excellence. In conclusion, the Assure model has 6 components, each necessary for the successful implementation of the instruction, including the first one is analyze learners. The second one is state objectives. The third one is select methods, media, and materials. The fourth one is utilize media and materials. The fifth one is require learner participation. And the sixth one is evaluate, revise. That's all for today, and thank you for listening.